On the morning I packed my suitcase, the house was quiet in a way that felt deliberate, as if it had already learned how to live without me. My phone lay face down on the table, untouched, while laughter echoed faintly in my memory from a celebration I hadn't been invited to. That was when I understood I was no longer part of their plans. I am a mother who spent decades measuring time in school pickups, holiday meals, and whispered good nights, believing that love, once given, would return when it mattered most. We live in a modest town where seasons change slowly and family routines are supposed to anchor you, not erase you. But something shifted the day my children chose to celebrate without me, and the silence that followed forced me to see my place in their lives with painful clarity. The kettle sat on the stove, quiet, not cold, not boiling, just waiting. The kitchen clock ticked louder than usual, each second landing heavy in the room. Afternoon light slipped through the curtains at an angle that made everything look unfinished. That was when I noticed the calendar again. The date was circled in blue ink, my handwriting. Careful, neat, as if being precise could make the moment real. Today. I had written it weeks ago, back when I still believed we would sit together. Back when I imagined the sound of chairs pulling out, cups touching the table, voices overlapping in that familiar way families do when they remember how to be close. I stood there longer than necessary, reading the small note beneath the circle. Lunch with the kids. The house felt prepared. Too prepared. The table was clear. The extra mugs were clean. Even the floor looked swept in a way it usually wasn't. I told myself not to check the time again, but I did. Then again. Each glance came with a small tightening in my chest. Something quiet but insistent. My phone buzzed once. A message. Short. Apologetic in the way people are when they've already moved on. Running late. No reason. No warmth. Just words sent to soften an absence. I sat down anyway. Old habit. I folded my hands and waited, listening to the refrigerator hum, to the clock, to the house breathing around me. Outside, the sky shifted. The light thinned, stretching shadows across the floor like they were reaching for something that wasn't there. Another message arrived. Longer this time, but emptier. Something came up. We'll talk soon. Soon was a word I had learned not to trust. I imagined their faces as they typed, distracted, half smiling, already somewhere else. I wondered if they felt the same pause I did before sending, or if this had been easy. The kettle never whistled. I turned the stove off without thinking. The click louder than it should have been. The room cooled. Or maybe it was just me. I walked back to the calendar and traced a circle with my finger. The ink was slightly faded now, like it already belonged to the past. I thought about erasing it, but my hand wouldn't move. That circle was proof that I had expected something. Proof that I had planned. The sun dipped lower, earlier than I remembered it doing before. The shadows lengthened, touching the legs of the chairs, crawling toward the doorway. The house looked bigger like this, emptier. A place meant to hold people, holding only time instead. I checked my phone one last time. Nothing new. No follow-up. No suggestion of rescheduling. Just silence. Settled and final. That's when it landed, not sharply. Not all at once. Just a quiet understanding. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't bad timing. It was a choice made gently enough that it almost felt polite. I stood alone in the kitchen, the circled date watching me from the wall, and I wondered not for the first time how long they had known they weren't coming. The phone lights up on the table without a sound. No vibration, just a soft glow, like it's trying not to interrupt. I don't reach for it right away. I'm standing by the window, watching a car slow down at the corner before turning away. The glass is cool against my palm. When I finally look, the screen is already open. The image waiting like it's been there a while. Balloons. Pink and gold. Someone's living room. Dressed up for joy. They're all there. My children, pressed close together, smiling the way people do when a picture is about to be shared. My daughter-in-law stands in the middle, arms wrapped around them like she belongs there naturally. Like she always has. I sit down without realizing it, the chair creaking under me as if it knows. The room feels quieter after that. I lean closer to the screen, studying details that weren't meant for me. The cake on the table behind them, store-bought, I think. The frosting uneven at the edges. I imagine how I would have smoothed it with a knife. how I would have wiped the plate clean before setting it down. I notice an empty chair near the wall, half hidden by a coat. That's where I would have sat, close enough to listen, far enough not to interrupt. The photograph smells like sugar and noise in my mind. Laughter layered over music, glasses clinking. I can almost hear someone calling out for another picture. The sound swells inside my chest, filling the space where my own house stays quiet. I scroll once, then back. No one looks toward the camera awkwardly. No one hesitates. They look settled, certain, like this was exactly how the day was supposed to be. I tell myself it's just a party, just a moment caught and shared without thinking. People forget things. People get busy. I've made excuses my whole life and worn them thin with use. Still, my eyes keep moving across the image, counting faces, counting smiles. There's no message attached. No wish you were here. No explanation. I set the phone face down, but the image stays. It hangs in the room like a sound that won't fade. The walls feel closer than they did a minute ago. Even the ceiling seems lower, pressing down gently, insistently. I stand and walk to the kitchen, touching the counter as I pass, grounding myself in something solid. My hands smell faintly of soap. Ordinary. The clock on the wall ticks, unbothered. I wonder how long that party lasted. I wonder if anyone mentioned me at all. When I return to the table, I turn the phone over again. The photo hasn't changed. It won't. It sits there, bright and confident, as if it has something to say. And maybe it does. Not loudly, not cruelly, just enough to be understood. I look at my own reflection in the dark screen beside their smiling faces. For a moment, the two images overlap. Then I lock the phone and set it down carefully, like it might break if I'm not gentle. I sit there, listening to the quiet reclaim the room, and I ask myself why a single photograph can feel less like an oversight and more like a line quietly drawn. The hallway mirror still holds my reflection longer than people do. I pass it on the way to the living room, catching sight of myself mid-step, paused, slightly unsure, like I'm waiting for permission to enter my own day. The house is quiet except for the soft tick of a clock I never remember winding. Somewhere, a floorboard creaks. It sounds familiar, like it remembers when I used to walk through here with purpose. I sit down slowly, the cushion giving way beneath me. Dust floats through a thin band of sunlight, moving without direction. I watch it longer than I should. It feels easier than looking back. The memories come the way they always do, uninvited, but polite. I see myself standing at the edge of the kitchen during a holiday, coat still on, listening as plans are made around me. Dinner moved earlier. Dessert shortened. Someone glances at their phone while I'm mid-sentence. I stop talking without anyone noticing. At the time, I smiled. I always did. I told myself this was normal. Families grow. They rearrange themselves. Voices change volume. I said it quietly, like a rule I'd agreed to follow. I said it enough times that it started to sound true. I remember sitting at a table set too neatly, hands folded in my lap while decisions passed overhead. Where to go, what to buy, when to leave. My name never entered the conversation unless someone needed confirmation. You're okay with that, right? Already moving on before I answered. I nodded. I always nodded. The room I'm in now feels smaller than it used to. Or maybe I'm just noticing the walls. The light shifts, touching the arm of the chair, then slipping away. I think about the holidays that ended early, the visits cut short. How often I said, "That's fine," even when it wasn't asked. I replay conversations in fragments, words overlapping, my thoughts arriving too late to matter. Someone interrupts me gently, smiling. Another person finishes my sentence wrong. I let it go. Correcting felt like work. Being quiet felt easier. There were moments I almost spoke up. I can still feel them, those small sparks of wanting to be heard. They fizzled out quickly, drowned by laughter or logistics or someone else's urgency. I learned to wait. I learned to step back, and slowly, without announcement, I learned how to disappear. The realization doesn't arrive with force. It settles. It lines the memories up neatly, one after another, like photographs laid out on a table. Each one shows me just slightly farther from the center. Still present, still smiling, just not essential. I sit with that thought, letting it rest where it lands. I wonder how long this has been happening. Years maybe, or longer. Long enough that no one noticed when my voice softened, when my opinions shrank to footnotes. The clock keeps ticking. The floor creaks again, a quiet acknowledgement. I place my hands flat on my knees and breathe in slowly, feeling the weight of the moment press down, not heavy, just honest. I don't feel angry, just aware, and as the light fades from the room, I ask myself almost gently how long someone can stand at the edge before they're no longer seen at all. The phone rests beside my teacup, screen dark, face up. I don't move it. I want it where I can see it breathe if it decides to. The tea goes untouched, a thin skin forming on the surface. Outside, the evening settles in slowly, like it's unsure whether it's welcome. I listen for sounds that never arrive. The house is unusually alert at this hour. Every small noise feels amplified: the refrigerator clicking on, the faint rush of water in the pipes, the soft tick of the clock as it counts time I'm not using. I keep my eyes on the phone, even when nothing changes. Especially when nothing changes, I tell myself they'll call soon. Any minute now. I imagine the sound first. That familiar ring. Not loud, not urgent, just enough to break the quiet. I picture my hand reaching for it, already forgiving. I practice the calm in my voice, the patience. I imagine saying, "It's okay," even if it isn't. I imagine listening more than speaking. Then the other version slips in. The one where my voice tightens without meaning to, where a question escapes before I can stop it. "Why didn't you call sooner?" I picture the silence on the other end, the shuffle, the explanation that doesn't quite land. I rehearse that one too, until both versions blur together. The light in the room changes. It always does. The sun drops lower, and the walls darken at the corners. Shadows stretch across the floor, slow and deliberate, like they know where they're going. I turn on a lamp, but it doesn't help much. The room still feels weighted, as if the air itself has decided to sit down. I glance at the phone again. Still nothing. I pick it up once, just to be sure. The glass is cool against my palm. No missed calls. No new messages. I set it back exactly where it was, careful not to move the cup beside it. I don't know why that feels important. Time moves differently when you're waiting. Minutes expand. Seconds feel personal. I find myself listening to the silence more than any sound, as if it might explain itself if I pay close enough attention. I think about all the evenings before this one. How often I waited. How often I filled the quiet with understanding they never asked for. I wonder if they know how patient silence can be. How convincing. The sky outside deepens to a darker blue. One by one, the houses across the street light up. Other families settling into their nights. Other conversations happening without effort. I watch a window glow, then another, until my own reflection appears faintly in the glass. Still no call. Something inside me loosens, not sharply, not painfully, just enough to notice. The part of me that was leaning forward eases back. The rehearsed words fade. The imagined conversations lose their shape. I don't feel angry. I don't feel relieved. I feel still. The phone stays quiet. It doesn't apologize. It doesn't explain. It just lies there, honest in its silence. And for the first time that evening, I stop waiting for it to change. The shadows settle in fully now, soft and final. I take a breath I didn't realize I was holding and let it go slowly. And I wonder, without urgency, without hope, when waiting becomes something else entirely. The drawer sticks before it opens. It always has. I pull a little harder, feeling the familiar resistance give way, and the wood sighs like it remembers my hands. Inside, everything is exactly where I left it. Folded papers, envelopes yellowed at the edges, a spare key taped to an old note I never finished writing. The house is quiet enough to hear the clock breathing. I move slowly, as if speed might disturb something. The evening light slips in low through the kitchen window, catching dust in its path. It settles on the counter, the cupboards, the small scratches on the floor I stopped noticing years ago. I open another drawer, then another. Here are the school projects. Construction paper stars. A crookedly glued family tree. My handwriting at the bottom, correcting a spelling mistake gently, so they wouldn't feel it. I trace the edge of the paper with my finger. The glue is brittle now. Time has done its work. I lift a photograph from an envelope. It bends slightly in my hand. We're all younger in it. I'm standing just outside the frame, my arm visible, holding the camera steady. I remember that day how I volunteered to take the pictures so everyone else could be in it. It felt natural then. It always did. I moved to the cupboard above the sink. More things. Saved things. Extra mugs for visits that came less often than promised. Napkins folded carefully, never used. A small box of birthday candles, half melted, kept just in case. I don't remember deciding to keep any of this. I only remember making room for it. The house feels full in a way it hasn't before. Not crowded. Weighted. Each object feels like evidence. Proof that I showed up. Proof that I prepared. Proof that I believed I was needed. I set things back where I found them. One by one, careful not to disturb the order. It matters more than it should. I sit down at the table, resting my hands in my lap. They smell faintly of old paper and dust. The chair creaks beneath me, familiar and patient. I think about how much of myself I folded away for others. My time, my opinions, my quiet wants. I stored them neatly, assuming I could come back for them later. I don't remember when later stopped arriving. The realization doesn't hurt sharply. It settles instead, like a hand placed gently on my chest. Heavy, but steady. I breathe into it, letting the feeling exist without trying to move it aside. If I've given everything, every spare key, every saved memory, every softened word, what did I keep? The light shifts again, sliding off the table, leaving the room dimmer. I don't turn on a lamp. I like it this way. Honest. Uncovered. I stand and close the drawers, the cupboards, listening to each one click shut. The sound feels final, but not unkind. I pause in the doorway, looking back at the room. It holds my life quietly, without judgment. For the first time, I don't feel the need to explain myself to it. I step away, carrying nothing in my hands. And as the room darkens behind me, a question follows, soft, persistent, wondering what it might feel like to keep something. Finally, just for myself, the cursor blinks on the screen like it's waiting for permission. I hold the phone in both hands, thumbs hovering, not touching anything yet. The room is still. Late afternoon light presses gently against the curtains, thinning the air. Somewhere outside, a car door closes. Life continuing without asking. I breathe once, then again. I start typing slowly, choosing words the way you choose steps on ice. Careful, measured. I erase whole sentences before they finish forming. Anything that sounds too soft feels dishonest. Anything too firm feels dangerous. I settle somewhere in between, where I've learned to live. Just wanted to check in. Delete. I've been thinking about you. Delete. What I finally send is plain, polite, almost empty. A message that asks for nothing and promises even less. When I hit send, the sound is barely there, but my chest tightens anyway, like something important just left me. I place the phone face down and wait. Evening creeps in quietly. The light shifts across the wall, catching the edge of a picture frame, then slipping away. I make tea I don't drink. I sit. I stand. I listen to the house settle into itself, each small sound too loud in the pause. Minutes stretch. Then hours. I tell myself not to watch the phone, so I watch it anyway. I imagine the moment they'll read my message, the pause before they answer, the expression on their face. I wonder if they'll hear what I didn't say, or if they'll only see the words. The reply comes without ceremony. No greeting. No question. Just a few lines. Polite. Correct. The kind of message you send when you don't want a conversation, only closure. I open it once, then again, then a third time, like warmth might appear if I look hard enough. It doesn't. There's no anger in it. That almost makes it worse. No misunderstanding to clear up. No feeling to respond to. Just distance wrapped in courtesy. I read between the lines until there's nothing left to read. I notice my hands are very still. I type a response in my head. Something honest. Something small but real. It never reaches my thumbs. I already know how it would land: flat, unanswered, floating in the space between us. The room feels larger now. Or maybe I'm smaller in it. I set the phone down carefully, aligning it with the edge of the table. The gesture feels precise, like control where I can find it. I think about all the conversations we used to have. Loud ones, messy ones, words overlapping, interruptions that didn't mean dismissal, only closeness. I don't remember when things changed. I only remember adjusting. The realization arrives gently. This isn't miscommunication. It's management. Careful words, short replies, emotional distance disguised as respect. I understand it the way you understand cold weather. You don't fight it. You layer up. Outside, the sky dims. A single light flicks on across the street. I don't reach for my phone again. There's nothing more to search for. I sit with the quiet, letting it settle where conversation used to be, and I wonder without bitterness, without accusation, when speaking began to feel lonelier than staying silent at all. The bedroom is dark, but not quiet. The house shifts around me, settling into its nighttime habits. A pipe clicks somewhere in the walls. The ceiling makes a soft sound, like it's stretching. I lie still, eyes open, listening the way you do when sleep has already decided not to come. The clock beside the bed glows faintly. I don't check the time. I already know it's late enough to feel alone. The sheets are cool where my feet rest, warm at my back. I turn once, then again, careful not to disturb the shape I've made in the mattress. The pillow smells like clean cotton and something familiar I can't name. I focus on that, hoping it will pull me under. It doesn't. Thoughts move in slowly, one at a time. Not loud, not urgent, just present. I think about conversations that never finished, about explanations I've rehearsed so many times they've worn smooth. I feel the ache return briefly, the old one, the one that asks what I did wrong. I let it pass. The house makes another sound, deeper this time. The floor creaks in the hallway, the same spot it always has. It feels like the house is awake with me, keeping watch. I breathe in then out, matching my rhythm to the quiet. Somewhere between midnight and morning, something shifts. It isn't sudden. There's no sharp realization, no moment I could point to later. The ache loosens its grip, replaced by something steadier, calmer, like a thought finally landing where it belongs. I see myself clearly for the first time in a long while. Not as a role, not as a responsibility, just as a person, lying awake in a room that knows her well. I think about how often I've explained myself, softened my needs, translated my feelings into something easier for others to hear. I understand now that I've been speaking into a room that stopped listening. The idea of leaving doesn't arrive with fear. It arrives gently, like a suggestion made without pressure. I don't picture suitcases or goodbyes yet. Just space, distance, a place where my worth doesn't need defending. I turn onto my back and stare at the ceiling, watching shadows move as a car passes outside. The light fades, and the room returns to stillness. My chest feels lighter than it did an hour ago. Not empty, just unburdened. I ask myself the question honestly. Is choosing myself abandonment? The word feels heavy, but it doesn't fit. What I feel isn't anger. It isn't punishment. It's preservation. The quiet understanding that staying like this is costing me more than leaving ever could. I think about all the times I stayed awake like this before, hoping for change to come on its own. It never did. The realization settles beside me, calm and patient, like it's willing to wait until morning. For the first time that night, my eyes close without effort. The house exhales around me. The clock keeps time. The world doesn't shift, but something inside me has already begun to move, and as sleep finally approaches, one thought lingers soft, unresolved, wondering what it might feel like to walk away not from love, but from the place where love stopped seeing me. The suitcase lies open on the bed, its fabric worn thin at the corners. It smells faintly of dust and old trips, the kind that were supposed to mean something different. Morning hasn't fully arrived yet. The light outside is pale, undecided. I stand there for a moment, listening to the house breathe, feeling like a guest in my own room. I touch the edge of the suitcase, then pull my hand back. Not yet. The house is quieter than usual, as if it knows what I'm doing and has agreed not to interfere. No radio, no television, just a soft hum of electricity moving through walls that have held my life for years. I fold a shirt carefully, smoothing the creases with my palm. It slides into the suitcase without protest. I choose only what I need, That's the rule I make for myself. A sweater that still feels like mine. Shoes that know my feet. Toiletries lined up neatly. Nothing extra. Each item is folded with intention, like I'm trying not to wake something fragile. The dresser drawers open and close softly. I leave behind clothes I once wore for other people. The ones chosen to fit expectations, not comfort. In the closet, hangers sway slightly when I brush past them. Dresses for holidays. Jackets for weather I stayed in too long. I let them be. They belong to a version of me that learned how to stay. The house watches. I can feel it. I move room to room slowly, carrying the suitcase for a while, then setting it down. The hallway floor creaks in the same place it always has. It sounds like recognition. I pause, hand on the wall, remembering how many times I walked this path without question. In the bathroom, I leave behind a bottle of lotion I never liked. A toothbrush meant for guests who stopped coming. In the kitchen, I don't open the cupboards. I already know what's inside. Saved things, waiting things. I don't need their weight with me. Back in the bedroom, I zip the suitcase partway, then stop. The sound feels too final. I sit on the edge of the bed, mattress dipping under my weight, and look around. The room holds its shape unchanged. The indentation where I slept will smooth out by evening. That thought stays with me. I close the suitcase fully. The zipper slides into place with a quiet certainty. Each closed drawer behind me feels like a decision already made. Not rushed, not dramatic, just done. At the doorway, I stop. The room behind me looks smaller from here. Or maybe I've grown. Light spills across the floor, catching the edge of the bed, the corner of the dresser. I wonder what it would feel like to stay, to unpack again, to keep waiting for things to return to how they never were. My hand rests on the doorframe. The wood is cool, familiar. I don't look back right away. I'm afraid that if I do, the house will remind me who I used to be here. I take one breath, then another. I step forward, suitcase in hand, leaving the room exactly as it is. The door stays open behind me, but I don't turn around to check. As I cross the threshold, a question follows softly, unspoken but present, wondering whether the pain of staying has finally grown heavier than the quiet ache of leaving. The car starts on the first turn of the key. No hesitation, no protest. The sound is familiar, steady, like it's done this before even if I haven't. The driveway looks the same as it always has, cracks in the concrete, a thin line of weeds at the edge. I back out slowly, careful not to rush the moment. The house doesn't wave. It never did. The road ahead is gray and ordinary, the kind of road you forget once you've driven it enough times. Mailboxes pass, a stop sign, the corner where I always slowed down more than necessary. Nothing marks this as a beginning or an ending. That feels important. I keep both hands on the wheel. The radio stays off. The silence feels earned. As I drive, the air inside the car feels different, lighter somehow. I take a breath without thinking about it. Then another. My shoulders drop a fraction, like they've been waiting for permission. The world outside moves at its usual pace, but something inside me has already stepped out of line. The signs are familiar. Grocery store, school zone, gas station with the faded price board. I've passed them 100 times, usually on my way to someone else's need. An errand, a visit, an obligation I didn't question. Today, they don't ask anything of me. The realization settles quietly. No one is waiting. No one is checking the time. No one is wondering where I am. I expect the feeling to be sharp fear, maybe, or regret. Instead, it's calm, unnamed, like standing in a room after the noise has stopped, ears still ringing slightly. I watch my reflection in the windshield, faint and moving, layered over the road ahead. A car passes in the opposite direction. Someone glances over, then looks away. To them, I'm just another driver, another story they won't know. The thought surprises me with its gentleness. I don't feel erased. I feel unclaimed. The road stretches on, unremarkable as ever. Trees blur together. The sky stays overcast, undecided. I adjust the mirror, then adjust it back. Small movements, quiet choices. I notice how my breathing has changed. Deeper, slower, as if my body understands something my mind is still catching up to. I don't rehearse conversations anymore. I don't imagine explanations. The space where that noise lived feels open now. Freedom, I think, isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't come with music or a clear view. It arrives quietly, riding alongside you, asking nothing, letting you sit with yourself without interruption. I pass the last familiar sign and don't look back. The road doesn't change, but I do. Not visibly, not dramatically, just enough to notice the car hums beneath me. The tires roll over the pavement with a sound that feels steady, dependable. I follow the curve of the road without effort, letting it lead where it will. For the first time in years, there is no role waiting at the end of this drive. No expectation folded neatly beside me. Just distance, just time. I keep driving, eyes forward, breath even. And as the familiar landscape slowly gives way to something less known, a quiet question settles in the passenger seat beside me, wondering if this gentle, unmarked feeling is what freedom was always meant to be. Morning arrives without asking anything of me. The light slips through unfamiliar curtains, softer than I expect, landing on the floor in a shape I don't recognize yet. Somewhere outside, a bird calls once, then again. I lie still for a moment, listening, letting the room remain new. No clock ticking loudly, no footsteps to anticipate. I get up slowly and open the window. Cool air moves in, clean and unbothered. It smells like damp pavement and leaves. I breathe it in deeply, surprised by how easily my chest expands. The mirror across the room catches my reflection as I pass. I don't stop, but I notice my face looks rested in a way it hasn't for years. The morning walk becomes my first habit. I lace my shoes without rush and step outside, letting the door close behind me. The street is quiet, still waking up. A woman across the way nods as she passes. No curiosity, no history, just a small kindness exchanged and released. I walk without destination, past trees I don't know the names of, past houses that hold stories I'll never be part of. The pavement feels solid under my feet, reliable. I realize no one expects me to report back. The thought settles gently, like something set down after being carried too long. At the corner cafe, the man behind the counter smiles when I order. He doesn't know how I take my coffee because I haven't told him yet. He doesn't ask anything personal, just hands me the cup and says, "Have a good morning," like it's a given. I sit by the window and watch strangers move through their own lives. A woman laughs into her phone. A couple argues quietly, then softens. No one looks at me twice. The space I take up feels honest. Days begin to stack like this. Simple, ordinary. I learn the best time to walk when the light hits the street just right. I learn which bench feels warmest in the afternoon. Conversations stay light weather. Books, nothing that requires explanation. I'm surprised by how good that feels. One afternoon, I catch my reflection in a shop window. I stop this time. My shoulders sit differently. My eyes don't scan for approval. I look like someone who belongs where she's standing, even if she's still figuring out why. At night, the quiet returns, but it's changed. It doesn't feel empty anymore. It feels full of space. I sit with it, sometimes holding my phone, sometimes not. I don't check for messages as often. Silence no longer feels like a verdict. Still, a question waits. I wonder if my absence has reached them yet. If there's been a pause, small, confused when they realized I wasn't there to fill the gaps. I imagine my name going unspoken at a table, my chair empty without comment. I don't know what happens when silence finally arrives where I used to be. Whether it settles or unsettles, whether it asks questions or answers them. I turn off the light and lie down, listening to a new house settle around me. The floor doesn't creak yet, it hasn't learned me, but it will. As sleep comes easily now, one thought lingers, quiet but present, wondering who notices when someone stops waiting to be seen, and what rises in the space they leave behind. The paper is heavier than it looks. It rests on the table, blank, waiting. Evening light drifts in through the window, slow and forgiving, touching the edges of the room like it's saying goodbye to the day. I sit down carefully, smoothing the paper with my palm, feeling its quiet resistance. The pen clicks once, then again. I don't rush. There's no one expecting this letter, no deadline, no address to write at the top. That feels important. The room is still enough to hear my own breathing, steady and unremarkable. Outside, a car passes. Somewhere, a door closes. Life continues without interruption. I begin slowly. The words arrive without drama, not accusations, not demands, Just truth, laid down gently. I write about moments I swallowed, conversations where I chose silence over conflict, smiles I wore to keep the air calm. I write about waiting, about hoping being patient would eventually make me visible. My hand moves steadily. I don't stop to reread. I describe how it felt to stand at the edge of my own family, present but unseen, how I learned to make myself smaller so things would stay peaceful. The pen presses harder in places, lighter in others. The paper accepts it all. I expect anger to show up. It doesn't. Instead, there's clarity. I write things I never said out loud because they would have changed a room. I write without softening the edges this time. Not cruelly, just honestly. The kind of honesty that doesn't ask to be forgiven. The light shifts as I write. Shadows stretch across the floor, slow and patient. My tea goes cold beside me. I don't notice until much later. The words keep coming, measured, complete. When I finally stop, my hand aches slightly. A good ache. Earned. I read the letter once, not to judge it, just to witness it. Everything I needed to say is there. Nothing more. Nothing missing. I fold the paper carefully, aligning the edges, pressing the crease flat with my thumb. The motion feels ceremonial. Even without an envelope, I don't feel the urge to send it. That realization settles quietly. Closure, I understand now, doesn't always require an audience. Some truths are meant to be acknowledged, not delivered. Some endings don't need agreement to be real. I place the folded letter in a drawer and close it gently. The wood makes a soft sound, final but kind. I move to the window and sit, watching the last of the daylight soften the room. The glass reflects my face faintly. Calm, present. For the first time in a long while, my thoughts aren't racing ahead or circling back. They rest where they are. The silence feels full, not empty. A place to stand without explanation. I think about the word end and how it never quite fit. What I did wasn't a disappearance. It was a return to myself, to something whole I'd set aside without noticing. The evening deepens. Lights come on across the street, one by one. I don't reach for my phone. I don't rehearse anything. I sit with the quiet, letting it hold me. And as night settles in completely, a final question lingers, not heavy, not urgent, wondering if leaving was ever the ending at all, or if it was simply the first moment I allowed myself to begin again.